Good morning. I'm David Marshall. I'm one of the pastors here. I'm so thankful that you were able to join us, or if you're joining us online, we're so happy that you are watching this morning. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this service. If you haven't already, we invite you to fill out a Connect card. It'll look like this in the back of the chairs, and you can bring it to the Welcome Center for a small gift, and we can answer any questions you may have. If you're watching online, you can scan the QR code at the bottom of your screen, and by filling out the Connect card or filling out that QR code, that will enable you to receive our weekly newsletter and just some other communications as we go on. Just so you know, this morning, we are going to be holding a fire drill in Kids Cove today. We do this periodically so that our teachers and children have an opportunity to practice and respond in how to respond in case of an emergency. In the event of an actual emergency, the doors in the hallway of the Kids Cove entrance would actually be locked. So we would ask that everyone would leave through the closest exit. And as you go to pick up your children, we have a space in the top corner of our parking lot that you can go to pick up your kids there. So that's what would happen in the event of an actual emergency. But again, today you may hear some short blasts of an air horn, but it is just a drill this morning. So we just want you to be aware of that, okay? So getting into some of our announcements this morning. Thank you to everyone who contributed to our baby bottle campaign for Life Choices. If you took a baby bottle and forgot to bring it back to church today, that's all right. Baby bottles can be dropped off at the church anytime this week as well. Okay, so we're finishing up that, the Change for Life. Audience of One. Audience of One is this Friday. It was rescheduled, and it will take place this Friday, May 31st at 5:30 p.m. at IRMC Park on Philadelphia Street. So I'd love to see you there. This is an evening of worship led by churches and other ministries in Indiana, and one of the sets will be led by a group from Saving Grace here as well. So we hope that you can go and worship with other believers from our community. So I'd love to see you there. All right. Greek salad, antipasto salad, macaroni salad, tossed salad, fruit salad, potato salad. The possibilities are endless. Now we're all hungry too, going into this message. We want you to be hungry for the word as well. But ladies, you can bring a salad to share as you enjoy a variety of salads for our women's summer salad exchange, okay? You can bring a variety of salads, and you can enjoy the wisdom that comes from so many different women and the many different seasons each of you are walking through. So that is the Women's Summer Salad Exchange. So feel free to bring any of those types of salads that you want to make. All right, so this next one might seem like a lot of unrelated items, okay? Do you like to bake? Any of you like to bake? Maybe a few. Do any of you have a golf cart sitting around? Maybe not. We'll see. Are you someone who is able to clean? Everybody should probably be raising your hands right now, especially you husbands, right? Okay. Anybody's able to clean, that sort of thing. Now, those might be unrelated, but we are actually looking for some things for youth camp that is happening in 2 weeks. Can you believe it? It is coming up quick. So it's only 2 weeks away. We could use your help. If you can bake some cookies and breakfast breads, or we are still looking for some golf carts. We're looking for some people to just help around camp from time to time. Come and see me. I'd love to talk to you about some of those things. We are asking that any breakfast breads or cookies would be free of any nuts. And that there's a clear list of ingredients when you bring them in. If you could provide that, that would be really helpful this year. And you can drop those off by Friday, June 7th here at the church. So if you are willing to do any of that, that would be great. We appreciate your help in all these ways, and we would love, biggest request of all is that you would all start praying for youth camp. Pray that the Lord would just meet all of us there. We are so excited. We are looking forward to it. And again, it is only 2 weeks away, believe it or not. So at this time, I'm going to have Kay come up to actually introduce our speaker for this morning.
So this morning, we're blessed to have Brandon Stiffler with us as our guest speaker. He's a pastor at Anchor, Indiana, here in town, and he's been a faithful servant. Even though he's a fairly young man, I can say that, fairly young man, he's been a faithful servant of Christ in our community for many years. He's currently studying at the Trinity Evangelical Disciple School. I got it wrong. And he's going to finish that up this week, this year. I got it right that time. And I'm getting to know him a little bit as we interact. But all reports that I have from my personal interactions and from other people from afar, through the storms like we had yesterday and through the sunny days like we have today, he's been a faithful pastor and shepherd, and standing on the solid rock foundation that is Jesus Christ. So we're blessed to have him in our community. He works with United, with the young people there, and we just have a real good relationship with him, and we're glad that he's here with us this morning. I believe your wife Jill is here as well, right? No? Oh, I thought I saw her. Okay, my fault. Boy, I'm making all kinds of mistakes on this, but we're glad to have Brandon. Please give him a warm welcome.
All right. Hey, good morning. Saving Grace Church, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so honored that you would ask me to be here. My wife wanted to be here, but like Kay said, my name is Brandon Stiffler. I serve Anchor Indiana Church. We have a church where a church has gone through infinite number of turmoil, storms, and changes in the past couple of years. And in case you didn't realize, this is Memorial Day weekend. So since I serve a church of about 30 people, half of them are gone. So my wife is actually busy and couldn't get here. She had to do stuff today, help set up, do production, all that jazz. But I'm super pumped to be here. I appreciate that Joe would extend the invitation to me with all the stuff that's gone on in my life and with the church that I am part of and the ministries I've been doing here in Indiana. He's been a great confidant, a great friend, and a great help to me and my community. So I'm just happy that I could share my heart a little bit with you this morning and have this opportunity. I'm not that young, okay? I'm 38. I'm almost 39, so I'm not that young. But I realize in the ministry world, sometimes that can be a little young, but I'm happy to be here. So I want to start off today by telling you a story about something that happened to me probably, I don't know, it's like 3 or 4 years ago. I'm in Pittsburgh, late at night. I think I was just passing through. Like Kay said, I'm finishing up my master's degree at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, TEDS out of Chicago. So I went to a branch campus, and I would go to Columbus, Ohio every month for a whole weekend to have classes for like Friday night, all day Saturday, all that. A nice hybrid way to do it. And I think I was traveling back from Columbus late one night, and I was going through Pittsburgh, and I was quite hungry. So I thought, I'm going to go stop in the South Side. There's a great little like fish and chip place in the South Side, the pub and chip shop. So I thought I'd go down there, get some delicious fish and chips to fuel up the rest of my drive home, because it's late. It's been a really long day. I had class from 8 to 4, and then I was hanging out, and then I'm driving home 4 hours. So I'm on my way there, and I'm walking down the South Side, and a man comes up to me very frantic, very animated, a look of concern on his face and a look of distress, and he comes up to me and he says, I have just been in jail for some DUIs. I had some things happen, And right now I'm trying to get home to my family in Harrisburg, okay? And he produces papers of his release from prison. He's talking to me. He's like, I just have a few dollars, just so like $10 to get a bus ticket to get out of here. That's what I'm trying to do. They told me where to go, but they didn't really help me out. And he's like, here's my ring. You can take my ring. I forgot to put on my wedding ring this morning, so I can't take it off as an object lesson, but I have a tattoo, so it's okay. But he takes off his ring, and he's like, you can have this as collateral. You can take it. Just help me out. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Number one, I don't have any cash, but we can work this out. Like, there's an ATM on the corner, my bank, so I don't even get service charges, okay? So we'll go out, and we'll take $20 out of the PNC ATM, and I give him the money, and he's thankful, trying to give me a ring. I don't want your ring. Keep it. I don't need it. Tell him I'm a pastor, right? I know these things could be hard, and maybe share a little bit of love of Jesus with him, and he gives me a big hug, and he goes off on his way. Tell my wife, hey, if you see $20 come out of our account, here's why, blah, blah, blah. Feels good to help someone, right? Well, this happens to my wife and I a lot. I don't know, maybe it's like the honest look on my face. Maybe there's just this like pastor vibe that goes off for me, because like this happens literally all the time. I'm the one in a crowd of people that always gets singled out by people. Right? Me and my wife, they're like, hey, can you help me? It's crazy. But fast forward 2 years ago, my wife is a wedding photographer, Jill Gerhard Photography, shameless plug. She won Best of Indiana County a couple years ago. She keeps winning. She's great. Shameless plug. Call her for all your photography needs. But we're at Pittsburgh again, and I'm doing an elopement ceremony for someone. Someone wants to just do some photos, a friend of my wife. They need someone to do the ceremony, sign the papers, you know how all that goes. I just did a wedding yesterday. I was at a wedding yesterday, and the officiant got submitted to the ICU on Friday, so I was DJing. I DJ weddings, and they needed an officiant, so I got to fill in yesterday. So, these are just the fun things you get to do when you're walking with Jesus and doing all these crazy things. But we're going to do an elopement ceremony, and where we're doing it is on a bridge, on the side of a bridge, down by Station Square, if you know anything about Pittsburgh. So we part. There's the air horn. Don't pay attention. It's okay. Focus. If I can talk through it, you can listen through it, okay? We're at this bridge. We park in the big parking lot, if you know anything about Station Square, and we're walking to the bridge, and a frantic man comes up towards us. You may know where this is going. Okay, we're literally in kind of a hurry. Okay, we need to get up there. We need to get this done. We got some time frames, and so this frantic man comes up to us and gives us a spiel. Well, tries to. I just got released from prison. This is why. Here are the papers. Would you like to take this ring as collateral for my money? I know who he is. That face was unforgettable. But I'm like, okay, I see how this is going. My wife has no clue. She's just like, I got a place to be. I got a task to do. Sir, we don't have any cash on us. We cannot help you. And he's like, well, let me talk to this guy. He wants to help me, blah, 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 blah. He does not remember who I am, clearly, because he wouldn't come up to me again and do this. But, we go back and we don't help him, and he storms off very angrily, mutters some stuff, and goes away. So I guess it's not my honest look. Maybe I just have a sucker look that comes from my face. But, when we hear these kinds of stories, right, they're actually few and far between, right? And for a lot of people I know, if I say this story, it will confirm the bias of, well, this is why you don't help people, right? This is why you vet people you're going to give money to, or this is why you don't just listen to people on the street, and this is why you don't this or that. People are just out to con you. They're out to take your money. They're out to trick you, right? These people who are on the street, who half of them don't need to be, they're just panhandling, they're just grifting, yada, yada, yada. Because in America, that's how we're taught to think about people. We're taught to think of them not necessarily as just human beings, but as what is their level in society, what is their race, what is their ethnicity, what is their background, how old are they, what are their addictions, what are their struggles, you name it. Like we're trained culturally to not necessarily help people, but to judge people. And to really, oftentimes for most people, do as much as we can to avoid helping people. Like if we're just honest, most people are like that, especially when it comes to like our money and things like that. But as we know, following Jesus looks a little different than what culture tells us, right? At least it should. So, today, I want to continue in your look at Matthew. I commend you for being in Matthew for so long. I once did Mark for 4 months, and people revolted, and they were like, let's get out of here. I'm like, there's still stuff to cover. But I see, like, just like when I went through Mark, bigger chunks get done the closer you get towards the end of the book. You start small, and then you realize maybe we should do some bigger sections. But as you are getting towards your end of the study of Matthew, today I was tasked with the passage of Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. And keep in mind the things that I've been saying, right, about how we look at people, how we care about people, what we do, especially what culture tells you. Okay, so if you have a copy of the scriptures, feel free to open it up to Matthew 25, starting in verse 31. We're going to go through 46, and it says this. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. But before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right hand and the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothed you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they will answer, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger or naked or sick in prison, and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, truly I say to you, as you did not do it to the one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your word. Thank you for the church body. Thank you that we can be a true church here in Indiana. Lord, more than just contained in these walls or the walls of where I have the privilege to minister, Lord, but thank you for the church in this community that loves you so much. And Lord, I pray that you would speak through me, Lord, that you would use me as a vessel to speak your word, and that every word that you want us to hear, we would hear, that we would come to it with open minds and open hearts and open ears, fertile soil to hear what you have for us, that the implanted word would grow and flourish and blossom within our hearts. We thank you ultimately for your love that you showed on the cross by dying and raising again. Jesus, we thank you, and it's in his name that we do pray. Amen. Dave, I forgot to bring that water up. Would you mind? Thank you. I've been yelling a lot the past week, including I substitute teach and I substitute for elementary phys ed on Wednesday. And I yelled a lot. I didn't bring a whistle, and that was a bad call. And then yesterday I DJ'd a wedding, so I yelled over loud music. So we're going to get through this. But when Joe told me the passage I was going to preach today, he said, I think this would fit your heart and your ministry. And I said, sure you did, buddy. Because this is such a nice little passage. And I thought, you just wanted to get out of town and have someone else do your dirty work for you. And as I listened to the last few messages of the week and heard Jason Rummel 2 weeks ago and what he had to talk about, I saw that it was true. Joe just pushes all these hard ones off on other people. So next time you see Joe, let him know that I'm on to him. But no, seriously, I did the same thing. Back in my church, my person preaching for me is talking about money, so that was good. I got out of town when they got to do that. But this passage, if you're a believer, if you've read Scripture, you're probably a little familiar with it. And as we've been going through, you've been going through the book of Matthew. I'm so used to saying we. I haven't been here. You've been going through the book of Matthew. You've come to this sort of culmination here, and you see this place where finally this idea of the final judgment is here. But before I talk about what I think this verse, these passages are saying to us, I want to say what I don't think it's saying. First, it's not saying that the most important thing and the definition of the gospel is helping the disenfranchised. Okay, now these passages are used in social gospel circles where, you want to help the disenfranchised, you want to be there for the underdog, you help the poor, you help the sick. This is all correct and true, but it is not the fullness of the gospel. The gospel is through Jesus and faith. So it can't be talking about the definition of the gospel. And secondly, I don't necessarily think the onus here is on the sheep and the goats. A lot of people read this passage, believe me, I've heard it talked about by a lot of people, and they really fret and they really think about, am I a sheep or am I a goat? Who are the sheep and who are the goats? We want to define people and put people into categories. I see some people that they're the sheep, we're the sheep, they're the goats, right? These are the people that are going to get judged in the end, and we're not, right? While it's true, final judgment is coming. We cannot escape that. 1 Corinthians 5:10 says that, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each who may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, whether good or evil. We cannot get past the fact that judgment will happen, and we should not. We should not make light of the fact that for every person, every human being that has ever existed has to at some point sit in front of Jesus and give account of what they've done in this life, whether good or bad. And we don't like to necessarily think about it, but even though if you are here and you are a believer in Jesus and you have confessed that faith, you still have to sit in front of him. It's just a different type of judgment. He still will ask us, what did you do while you were on earth? We all have to sit before Jesus at some point and give account for what we've done. So judgment is real. But we know that the definition and what defines the judgment and the things we will have in front of the Lord is not whether we have fulfilled all the boxes or checked off everything we're supposed to do or lived a perfect life. We know that that is not true because the essence of the gospel is that we cannot do that, right? Ephesians 2:8-9. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. Right? So salvation comes solely through faith alone in Christ alone. Salvation comes by our belief in Jesus. So your definition of who you are in the light of God is either I have believed in Jesus, and I have, as the scriptures say, confessed with my mouth Jesus is Lord and believed in my heart that God raised him from the dead. I believe that, and I'm saved. Right? That's the beauty of the gospel, that God did everything that we could not do on our own so that we could be counted as the righteousness of God and we could be part of his family. So when we look at a passage like this, we have to keep these things in mind, because it's easy to look at what am I doing as defining my worth and my standing before God, when your standing before God is decided solely based off your belief or non-belief in Jesus. So your actions must somehow be separated from this, and he's talking about some sort of action. So if you are here and you have believed in Jesus, you technically are a sheep. Okay? That's why I call this message, Through His Sheep. Because whether you are going to heaven or not is based solely on Jesus, not upon your actions. You cannot do enough good things to merit being brought into the kingdom. And when we read some of these passages, we have to know that, because our mind can be deceived and the devil can use the goodness of God to change how we view ourselves and to hurt us. Right? Like, how did the original sin happen? Satan said, did God really say? Did God really say you would die? Okay, well, you get to a passage like this and plays on that fear of your insecurities and not understanding your worth and your value before Jesus, and what you get. It's like, did God really say that you only had to believe in Jesus, right? Look at what you're doing. Are you doing enough to make it to heaven? So we have to be wary of that. So what is this passage talking about? I mean, I said we're coming to the culmination of this part of Matthew where you have talked about, the eschaton. You've talked about the end of days. Jesus has been telling you about that. Jesus has been giving you parables about being ready, right, as Joe talked about last week. I actually just got to preach about the talents like 2 weeks ago, so I get that. So while you might have a Bible that has headings in it that says the final judgment above this little section of passage like I do, this really is the culmination of what Jesus has been talking about in preparation for his second coming. And we have got to the point where he is now saying, here's what's going to happen when I come. I am preeminent, I am sovereign, I am above all, and I am going to be the judge of the world. The question for you is, when God comes and Jesus finally returns, what will he find his people doing? What will he find his people doing? Will he find them following his voice? Will he find sheep that follow the voice of the shepherd? Or will he find indignant goats who don't? And like I said, this isn't necessarily a parable, but sometimes when we read things in Scripture, We want to overanalyze every single word. When a lot of times, especially if you're reading parables, which this is kind of a parable or kind of not, the overarching principle is what matters. So he says when he comes, it's going to be like someone who separates sheep from goats. So I don't necessarily think the sheep and the goats are the point. He's telling you how it's going to work, but Scripture, Jesus, other writers, they like to give us hyperbole and very extensive things to pound home a point. And the point here is, I entrusted you with the poor, the needy, the thirsty, the hungry, the disenfranchised, the people who needed my love the most. And what did you do with those people? Just like when we look at the talents, what did we do with God gave us? Okay, well now he's saying, what did you do with the people that were in your presence? How did you, as a follower of Jesus, treat the people that needed my love the most? Did you treat them the way I would? Or did you treat them the way often the world tells us to treat them? You see, go back to my story about the man who tried to get me twice. Right, so fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, right? No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? I'm not going to fall for it again. But that doesn't mean I now have looked at everyone who has those stories or those needs and looked at it through the lens of this one person who tainted it. We can become cynical. We can become jaded. Guess what? You're going to get taken advantage of by people in this life. People are going to trick you. People are going to use you. People are going to take advantage of your kindness, especially if you claim to know Jesus and you're following Jesus. You should have a different kind of lifestyle, and you should have more kindness in your heart. So people are going to take advantage of that. If you've done any ministry at all, me being a pastor, I know, people will take advantage of the goodness of the church, of the goodness of his people. But that doesn't bother me. It's frustrating, yeah. But I still, when I'm going through a city, if I'm in a city where I know there are homeless people, I try, this is not a brag, it's not a humble boast, I try to have cash on hand to give to people who need it. Because guess what? That's what God told me to do. So for me, as a follower of Jesus, what I have to answer to is, what did you do when you were presented with a need from someone in front of you? How did you deal with that? Did you help the need? Did you give them that dollar? Or did you just walk on by? Because for me, when I go before God, my conscience is, did I help or not? Because guess what? You don't know what happens after that. What happens after that is now between them and God. What's between me and God is, did I help? What's between them and God is, what did they do with the stuff I gave them? Were they honest? Were they true? Were they trying to... I can't ask those questions. I shouldn't ask those questions. We can't second guess everyone in our life who needs our help, who wants our help. We can't live life looking at everyone who is in trouble and think, how did they get there? What are their intentions? What are their motives? What are this? What are that? No, because God said, what are you going to do with the people in your path? Are you going to give them something to drink? Are you going to feed them? Are you going to clothe them? Are you going to visit them? Are you going to do what I would do? Or are you going to do what everyone else would do? Because what did we see when Jesus was walking on this earth? What did we see when the person that we call Lord, that we call our shepherd, do? He loved, he cared, he gave, he sacrificed, and ultimately he sacrificed everything when he bled and died on that cross, when he shed his blood for your sins and for my sins, when he shed his blood for the forgiveness of the world, and when he rose again, as we sang, and defeated sin and death on our behalf. He didn't question everyone's motives. Did he ask some questions? Of course he did. He also knew a little more than us because he's God in human flesh. But did he love? Did he care? Did he go out of his way to help? Yes, he did. So when we look at portions of Scripture, like in here, we're looking at 35 through 40, where he talks about, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Right? Then the righteous will answer him, saying, when did we do this? When you saw someone who was the least of these, you did it to me. So these people that Jesus is championing are the ones that did it without thought, without any sort of hesitancy. Right? When did we do this, Lord? When did we do this? Well, when you saw these people, when you saw these things in front of you, you did it. When you did to the least of these, you did it for me. And I'm going to be very honest with you. When I look at specifically Western American Christianity, I see a lot more goats than I see sheep. I see a lot more people that want to define people into boxes, that want to serve a Jesus of their own making rather than the Jesus of the Bible. We see churches that claim to worship, and this is not a judgment or an indictment. Well, it might be an indictment, but it's very frustrating because we as a Western church have become so privileged. Okay, when we talk about the talents, if we use that as a church thing, we've been given all the talents in the world. We are the most blessed church in the world, with resources, with people, with freedom. We don't really know what it's like to be persecuted and afflicted. We want to think we do, but we don't. If you want to know what it's like, go to a country where that's actually happening. And because of that, we are free to worship a God of our own design. We are free to think Jesus fits every mindset we have. We're free to look at certain scriptures and say they matter and look at others and say they don't. We're free to believe that Jesus believes exactly what we believe because we're a blessed nation. So if God has blessed us, clearly God thinks like us. We're free to think Jesus is all about capitalism. We're free to think Jesus is all about certain whatevers. And then we start worshiping politicians, whatever side you're on, I don't care. We start worshiping celebrities. We start worshiping ideologies. We start worshiping our country, our flag, our Constitution. None of this is a knock on all of this. I love that I live in America. I love this country. But it's not my home. My home is in heaven. My citizenship of America is my secondary citizenship. My first citizenship is in heaven, and it's in the kingdom of God. So that supersedes anything that has to do with being a citizen of America. I'm just an ambassador walking through this land, and so are you. So we start to worship things and ideologies that we think are in Scripture, but they aren't. We start to think the way we think Jesus thinks, but he doesn't. And we start to judge people based off our cultural assumptions or our political leanings or our own wants and desires, and we fail to see that Jesus has called us to love with a radical love and to care about people that, guess what, our society does not care about, and to help people that other people won't help, and to do it freely. Or we look at the first church in Acts 2. It said what? They had all possessions in common, and they gave freely, and they did this. I don't know. That looks a lot like a very, if we were going on a political spectrum, our progressive, socialist, crazy way of living. This is not a political speech. I'm just saying, like, we can't read the Scripture and ignore the things that happened and what they did and think that we can just shove God into the box of our own design. God said, help people. God said, care about people. God said, do what you can to help the people that need it. And the American church has often failed at that. Now, it's often been very great at it, too. There are many more great churches in this country than bad. They just don't make the headlines. There are more loving pastors like Joe and myself and other people in this town than there are hatred and bigotry and all the stuff that gets portrayed about Christianity because we don't make the headlines. Because we're not making waves. We're just trying to help people. So I get what Joe said when he said this would fit my ministry. We try to do what we can. We have a lot of resources, but we try to do what we can. The beauty of being a very small church is I can give money pretty freely because I don't have to answer to a lot of people. So if someone needs help with rent and we have the money in our bank account, I can help them with their rent. Someone needs some food, I can help them with food. I don't have to go through red tape and bureaucracy. Now, listen to me, a church also has to be smart with its money. Don't get me wrong, like I know how church works. But I also know how the people of God work. Now, if I look at 1 John 3:16 and 18, it says this, by this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and truth. Ben can come back up. Right. God has spoken to us. He has spoken to us in his word that we are not supposed to love just through word, just through deed, but through action and truth. Because what I believe this passage is speaking to us is, yes, there is judgment coming. Yes, Jesus is over all and he is the ultimate judge. But I believe it is saying and speaking to us that the shepherd shows his love through his sheep. The shepherd shows his love through his sheep. And if you have believed in Jesus and you have called him your Savior and you have called him your God, you are his sheep. And he has entrusted you to be the ones who carry his love to a dead, dying, and hurting world. And oftentimes that means loving people that are hard to love. Oftentimes that means sacrificing something for that love. That might mean giving your money, your time, your possessions, your home. I don't know what it is for you. But what I do know is that God, the Good Shepherd, shows his love through his sheep. Because for some reason, even though we all are so messed up and screwed up, and that's the basis why we need the gospel, because everyone is inherently flawed and broken, God has said, I'm going to let you take care of my business on this earth. I'm going to let you be my servants, my sheep, and I'm going to let you be the people that show them that I love them. And oftentimes, myself, I fail more than I succeed at this. Like, if I'm just honest, like, I fail more than I succeed at showing the love of Jesus to people. But I try to do my best to represent him to a world that needs to know him. Because every single human being that has ever graced this earth has the image of God implanted on them and is of infinite value to him. And I fear that our actions oftentimes do not reflect that love and that care that God has for his people. That when we're called to love our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors, our friends, because the only way they're going to know Jesus is through his love, and the only way they're going to know his love without his divine intervention is through his people. I'm not always doing a good job at making the kingdom of God expand and making people know how much God loves them. And you don't know when God has put someone in your path that just needs a little bit of hope, a little bit of care, a little bit of love, a little bit of the goodness of God in their life. There are so many hurting, broken people, of which I can be one of them most times, right? Like, there are so many hurting and broken people in this world. And we get caught up in what culture tells us to care about, in what politics tells us to care about, in what our jobs tell us to care about, and what our ideologies tell us to care about. And we forget to care about what God told us to care about, which is people, which is his kingdom, which is sharing his love both through word and deed to this world, so that they can come to know the love of a Savior who would bleed, die, and raise again for them. Right? It's the goodness of God that leads us to repentance. We can't just do things and expect them to know who God is. Yes, we have to talk about Jesus. We have to share the gospel. But oftentimes, the first way we do share the gospel is in our actions and our thoughts and our words and our possessions and everything else. And when you hear things thrown against the church, it's often about, why doesn't the church care more about the people that are in this passage? Because the outside world is watching us. The world watches us. And Satan will make every attempt to nullify the good that happens within the church. And the easiest way they can do that is to see, how are we treating people that are not in our midst? How are we caring for the people that need God's care the most? That speaks more to the world than anything else. That's why God cares about how we treat and what we do and the love we show the people that need it the most. Because he was willing to give everything for us. He was willing to come to earth as a human being, to live a life of pain and hurt, to be hungry, to be thirsty, to be tired, to be poor, to live a life that fulfilled everything we couldn't fulfill, and then to give himself for us, to die on a cross, to raise from the dead, so that you and I could be part of the family of God. And what he's asking of us is not that we end it there and use his death and his resurrection as just a get-out-of-jail-free card and a ticket to eternity. But to show it, to use it, to follow it, and to spread his kingdom, and to get to the work that the shepherd has called us to do, which is loving and caring for people. Imagine what the world would be like if every person who professed faith in Jesus, allowed him to change their hearts, actually became disciples, actually followed him. What we could do in a dead, dying, and hurting world. Because just like the talents, there are way too many people that are like the one who buried it than the one who used it. So people want to know why the church isn't growing? Well, because 80% of the people in the church aren't doing what God called them to do. We want to know why the world's full of pain and hurt? Well, because the one that God entrusted to change that isn't doing their job. We could change the world. We could change the world. Or we could just care about ourselves. And the question for us is, which one are we going to do? How much are we going to follow the shepherd's voice? Who in your life do you need to help? Who in your life has God put in your path? Ask that question. That's not a rhetorical question. Like, ask yourself. Actually ask yourself. Who has God put in my path that I need to help? Who has God put in my life that I need to give something to, give something up for, show love, and do what he's called me to do? And see if we actually take that seriously, what God could do to the world. Let's pray. God, ultimately, you are the good shepherd. You are the one who has called us to follow you. And as I usually do, I talked longer than I thought I would. But God, you are the one who has called us to love a hurting world so that they could come to know you and that they could come to live eternity and spend eternity with you, Lord. So help us to see the people you've put in our path, the people that you have entrusted us with. The least of these. And let us take seriously the role of your sheep who are sent to share your love to the world. Thank you for showing us that love through the gospel of Jesus, through dying on a cross and raising again. We thank you for your blessings and your mercies that you give us every day. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.